Welcome back, Mama. Let me ask you something. How often does that little voice in your head spiral into what ifs? What if my child eats something unsafe? What if I'm not prepared? What if something happens when I'm not there? If your worry feels like it's always on high alert, you are not alone. I know how heavy this responsibility can feel, but here's the good news. There are ways to dial back that constant worry and feel more confident, calm, and in control. In today's episode, we're diving into practical strategies and mindset shifts to lower food allergy anxiety, not just for you, but for your entire family. Because when you're calm, they feel safe too. Stick with me because by the end of the episode, you'll have tools you can start using today to bring more peace into your life while keeping your child safe. Let's get to it. Hey, food allergy mama. If you're here, you've likely experienced the scary and lonely food allergy diagnosis with your child. Unfortunately, food allergy parents aren't taught how to navigate the food allergy lifestyle, and it's easy to feel alone and discouraged sometimes. But I'm here to show you that food allergy life doesn't have to feel restrictive, scary, or isolated. I'm Karina, and I'm a 17-year food allergy mom and food allergy coach at Friendly Pantry Consulting. I specialize in making food allergy life safer and less worrisome for food allergy families like yours. I'm not perfect, but over 17 years, I've learned a lot the hard way, and I'm sharing the secrets and resources you won't hear anywhere else that will help you feel confident living with food allergies faster and easier than I did. From introducing allergens, travel, navigating school, and educating friends and family, this podcast will give you the essential tips and strategies you need to help your food allergy child and family thrive. Welcome to the show. Are you starting to talk to your child about their food allergies? If your food allergy kid is aged 2 to 8, I have a list of skills to teach your child as they grow and become more independent. This list is free, and not only will you get a checklist of skills, but you'll get fun ways you can teach your child in everyday life. If you haven't already, go to friendlypantry.com/empowerment and grab it for free. As food allergy parents, we can find that our worry is like the Energizer Bunny. It just goes on and on and on. But whether you feel like you worry a little or a lot about food allergies, this episode is for you because worry can come up in the most surprising ways. For example, worry about food allergies can make it scary to try new foods. Or worry can stop you from leaving your child with someone else. Worry can cause you to be terrified to send your child to school. It can also stop you from doing the things you've always dreamed of with your kids, like sending them to birthday parties or even taking a family vacation or dining out. Which is why I wanted to help you to address worry so that when you find yourself feeling out of control or fearful, you have the tools to move forward. Even more importantly, I want to lower your worry so that it doesn't rub off on your child. So first of all, I'm not a psychologist or a doctor. I'm not able to help with that intense anxiety or trauma due to anaphylaxis. If you find that you have extreme post-traumatic stress from anaphylaxis or really high anxiety that is interfering with your life, I recommend that you reach out for professional help from a food allergy therapist. But what we're talking about today is the regular, everyday worry of food allergies. I think that there's a belief out there that it's not even possible to worry less about food allergies. But after helping many mamas with this, I know that by doing simple things, you can decrease your food allergy worry and stress. But why is it even important? There was an article in the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology where Dr. Ruchi Gupta says that because children take cues from their parents and their level of anxiety often reflects their parents' level of anxiety, parents need to recognize how they're communicating with their children about food allergies. I'll post a link to that in the show notes. But in this quote, Dr. Gupta says that it's easy to transfer our anxiety to our kids. Because of this, we really do want to lower our anxiety as much as possible so that we can help our kids overcome it too. So in light of this article, I want to ask, can you see how important it is to not only lower your anxiety, but stop it from rubbing off on your child too? If so, let's talk about some practical and real ways to decrease you and your child's anxiety about food allergies. Even if you don't feel like you worry very much, stick with me here because these are going to help you too. So tip number 1 is to focus on facts instead of fears. Now remember, fear is normal and healthy. It can help us when we're in a dangerous situation and force us to take action that's going to keep us safe. But according to an article by Psychology Today, you or your child don't actually need to be in danger or feel fear. We often fear things just because of what we imagine can happen. Unfortunately, especially with food allergies, what we imagine is the worst case scenario. Okay, so for example, I was recently at Disney World with my family, and for a few reasons, my husband and my daughter had to go home early, my younger daughter, which meant that I was left to drive my other daughter and I to the parks and home every day. Now, I'm a good driver, I think I am at least, and I have a lot of experience driving, but for some reasons, being on my own and driving in a new place just made me really nervous. I kept thinking about the worst case scenario of getting lost on the big freeways, or worse yet, getting into a crash. These thoughts almost caused me to say I'm not going to do it, and that would have had me miss out on having an amazing time with my daughter. Or they may have caused us to spend more money on transportation because I was too worried to drive. There's a lot of bad things that this worry could have caused, but guess what? In the end, it was so much easier than I thought. All that time I spent fretting was really for nothing. We were able to use Google Maps and everything went very smoothly. We didn't have an accident or even get lost on the freeway. The point that I'm trying to make is that when we let our imagination play a big role in our decisions, but our imagination is focusing on fear instead of facts, our comfort zones can become limited and keep us stuck. So think about something you're afraid to do when it comes to food allergies. And I know that trying new foods can be really hard for food allergy mamas. If this is you, think about what comes to mind right away when you want to give your child a new food. Are you thinking of how awesome it's going to be to give this food to your child? Not likely. Instead, you might be thinking about the worst case scenarios and whether you know what you need to do if something happens, and especially how guilty you'll feel if something happens. Am I right? So how do we change that and focus on facts instead of fear? The first thing that I want to say is that you should be prepared for the worst case scenario. So in my car example, I made sure to have medical insurance for travel, and my car insurance information was there with me handy so that if we got in an accident, I would have the help I needed. I also bought extra data so that I could use Google Maps as much as needed while we traveled. That way, I would be prepared if we had an accident or we got lost. By being prepared, I could focus on the fact that I'm ready for whatever happens. As it turned out, I didn't need any of it, but being prepared was half the battle mentally. So how can you become prepared for the worst case scenario with food allergies? I would say that you should increase your knowledge about recognizing anaphylaxis and how to use the epinephrine injector or device. This may seem oversimplified, but it works. Trust me. There's a special way to do this, and it's simpler than you think. So I want you to get out your anaphylaxis emergency plan. And if you don't have one, I'm going to post a link to one that you can get from Food Allergy Research and Education. Don't skip this. I want you to do this as soon as you finish this episode because it works. Now, I want you to go over that anaphylaxis emergency plan and think about different scenarios that could happen and what you would do. You can do this with your spouse or a friend too, and I find that it really helps to do it out loud. So to say, okay, here's what's happening. They're getting hives and they're really itchy. Their mouth is tingly, and you're talking it out because it's going to help you to understand what you're looking for so that you can feel calmer when just one or two hives shows up. Then, as you're doing this, I would love for you to grab your expired epinephrines. Hopefully you have some. If you don't, use the trainer. But what I want you to do is get an orange and use the expired epinephrine on the orange. If you can do it more than once, like you have more than one expired epinephrine, even better. Because feeling that epinephrine inject into the orange helps you know what to expect. It's a game changer. When your child is old enough, I recommend you do this with them too because it really takes that fear of the epinephrine away. It shows that it's not actually painful, that it is quick, and it just helps everyone to know what to expect. I know that feeling of panic you get when you see one or two hives on your child. I have definitely been there. But if you fully understand your emergency plan, you're going to see when you can watch and wait and when you have to use the epinephrine. full knowledge of this and not just reading it, but actually talking out scenarios and pretending, doing role playing with it really makes a big difference. It's a huge confidence booster because it helps you feel prepared. The next thing to do to calm your everyday food allergy anxiety is to filter your worry input. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, maybe there's a social media account or a Facebook group where you're going to see posts that talk about the worst case scenario all the time. There's a really fine balance between being aware or actually living from a place of constant fear. And if you find yourself in that place of living in fear, then you may want to filter out some of those negative social media spaces. Because social media is excellent for support and community, but it's not always fact-based. But what do you do when you inevitably come across that anaphylaxis post that has a scary reaction or maybe even news of a tragedy? Here's a couple of tips. Limit places you tend to find scary posts. It's okay to put boundaries on things that are going to threaten you and your child's mental health. 2, recognize that the person posting is likely full of all sorts of emotions and fear, and that's going to come through on their post. So first of all, you don't need to read that post. If you feel like it's going to affect you mentally, it's okay and good to skip it. Decide on your boundaries and keep them. Satisfying your curiosity about the situation is not worth the fear that it can create in your mind or your child's. If you do decide to read the post, remember that reading that post is likely opening a really thick book and you're reading from the middle. So even if the original poster explains the scenario and it seems like they did everything possible to avoid that reaction, you still have only a one-sided account and there are always two sides to every story. You're seeing a one-sided emotional post. You have no idea what they did to avoid the reaction or what precautions were taken. You especially don't have enough facts to relate the story to your own family. Even if it seems like that person did every single thing that they could to avoid a reaction, their story is not your story. And just because it happened to them does not mean that it's going to happen to you or your child. This is really important to remember. Once you filter out the scary and unhealthy information, it's time to focus on the facts or the truths about food allergies. And here's a couple places to get really good evidence-based information. Of course, FAIR and Food Allergy Canada are both great. There's also great podcasts created by Quad AI. I think I'll link to those in the show notes. All of these are great places to go for fact-checking. Okay, the third way to decrease your food allergy anxiety and worry is to learn practical knowledge from a mentor you trust. Now, I told you how important it is to know the real facts about food allergies, but sometimes going from facts to actual steps that you're going to take in everyday life can be a bit of a jump. I mean, how do you go from knowing what cross-contact is to ensuring that friends and family and even teachers fully understand it? It's not easy and it can cause a lot of stress and frustration for you. That's where practical knowledge comes in. Practical knowledge is the bridge between where you might be now, feeling stressed and worried, to feeling confident and fully able to cope with food allergy life. Practical knowledge is what you're learning in this podcast, and it's practical tools and tips that have worked for our family over 17 years and helped hundreds of other families too. I share practical knowledge by taking evidence-based facts and turn them into step-by-step solutions that you can easily use or adapt for your own life. This practical knowledge is like gold because it stops you from having to figure it out on your own and risk trial and error or learn the hard way. But the problem is that practical knowledge takes years to build. It takes lots of trial and error. It takes research and experience. So what's a mama to do? I mean, nobody wants to learn the hard way. But the answer is to find an experienced mentor. When you're looking for this, don't just go for any blogger or food allergy mama on Instagram. If you want to really lower your stress and worry, choose someone who's been there and done that for many years and also bases their information on evidence-based facts. You need someone who can give you all the best advice and tips because they've actually tested their strategy over many years, not just once or twice. Yes, some food allergy bloggers may have 3 or 4 years of experience, but have they actually tested and used what they're sharing over many years to know that it works? And have they had others test their tips and strategies so they know they work for others and themselves? Keep these questions in mind when you're choosing your mentor. It will mean the difference between learning the hard way and feeling completely confident. Okay, so those are the 3 ways to decrease your food allergy worry or anxiety. Focus on facts instead of fear by understanding anaphylaxis, the anaphylaxis emergency plan, and your epinephrine injector. Filter your anxiety input, and get an experienced mentor who can teach you a wealth of practical knowledge. Which one of these are you going to put into action? I'd love for you to let me know. Send me a message over on Instagram at Friendly Pantry. If you found that this episode helped you, I would love for you to check out some of my workshops because I've got so many more ways to help you. The workshops and templates will help you get over the fear of trying new foods. They'll help you navigate social events, school, and even traveling with food allergies. Go to the show notes to get more information on those. Remember, I'm cheering for you and sending you encouragement today. Thanks for listening, and bye for now. Before you go, Mama, if you love this episode and want deeper support, head over to friendlypantry.com to see how we can partner together to keep your food allergy child safer and worry less. There's no need for wasting time searching all over Instagram, TikTok, and the web to get the practical knowledge you need for your family. While you're there, grab your free Food Allergy Kids Empowerment Guide or the newly diagnosed checklist today. Topics are not medical advice and are the opinions, views, and property of Friendly Pantry Consulting Incorporated. All rights reserved. Always contact your board-certified allergist immunologist for health advice.